Man, you need to buy yourself a gun.
What?
Gun.
What?
Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you.
What?
What if your government tries to throw you in a can?
What?
You're going to want a shotgun.
Oh. What?
An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo.
Gun? Riots in the streets, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are in the midst of it. It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime. My name is Michael, and I do not own a Dodge.
My name is Nicholas, and I do own a Dodge. However,
Watch out.
It is hit by many, many people. Just they were in Germany.
I'm telling you, you almost have a guilty look. It's that haircut.
It's probably the haircut. I'll tell you that.
So we're in kind of a new era here. Not necessarily, but
that's what I say.
The focus is kind of new, isn't it?
No, not really. I think we go through cycles with this. I mean, anybody who was around in the 60s will tell you 1968 was a summer of chaos with the Democratic National Convention. Anybody who made it through, the late 70s and early 80s probably saw the same stuff. And then, this is just the 20-year cycle coming down.
Well, I think we're in the midst of it. Honestly, I'd be willing to bet the value of the rapidly declining dollar against my contention that this is the beginning of the American Spring and or the color revolution. I think once again, if you follow the money, you will follow a bunch of it back to Soros, and then George Soros has had his hand in quite a few of these little eventualities. One of them being Ukraine. Which we just found out yesterday that Ukraine may have been the little jump start that North Korea needed into its nuclear escapades. What do you think about that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that would mean like there was some kind of collusion going on.
Oh my Lord, collusion! Well, yeah. I think it's very interesting that Ukraine went through some of the exact same political protests that happened in many of these other countries, and we were heavily involved. And straight up, honestly, there's no denying this. The U.S. funding went to a group that could loosely, right now, be termed as a neo-Nazi group.
Well, the whole thing is
kind of odd, because there's a lot of Israelis involved in this thing.
Yeah, well,
and
follow the money, right?
Right, follow the money.
So, the interesting thing is that you talk about Ukraine, and we talk about the evil C word, collusion. Isn't the only collusion that has been verified has been the Ukrainians aiding Hillary Clinton's campaign?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, or the Pakistani family who was IT providers par excellence to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, right? That is that collusion when you get busted trying to send, X number of dollars to
Well,
Pakistan?
Debbie Wasserman Schultz is just acting in the fine Irish tradition of her people, where she just shares the wealth with as many as she
Well, she
can.
shares your wealth with everybody because that's
But,
congressional funds that pay those salaries. Considering
right.
Imran Awan's wife was working at McDonald's before she became a highly sought after internet technician.
Right, and what did they milked Congress for about $4 million over a couple years.
32 members of the House of Representatives on the Democratic Party used any one of those family member services.
Huh. And from what I understand, those services never really amounted to much.
No,
Like they
no,
weren't all fixing the IT issues or anything. They couldn't make sure that your YouTube wouldn't stop buffering or anything like that.
right. Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. You can't talk about that.
I think so. I mean, like you start talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and this whole mess, and you start looking into, that prosecutor that died in her county that was kind of like looking into this, and they ruled him a suicide, even though he was found on the beach with no gun or anything like that, shot in the head. No sort of family issues or financial issues that would have precipitated such a drastic action. None of the usual warning signs. He just offed himself, and oh, by the way, he happened to be involved in investigating Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So yeah.
Well, there's going to be consequences. There's going to be consequences.
Par for the course, and then we see that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is highly in collusion with people like George Soros, who are throwing money into groups like Antifa, which I'm telling you, Trump is becoming my favorite president every day, more and more. He called out left, he called out right, he called out CNN. I just love a dude who pisses off everybody like that.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing is that when you talk about Donald Trump and you talk about the media's unending need to just hit him on everything, when you look at it on its face, in the events that happened here, nearby in the last couple of weeks, he was pretty much able to come out and say, you know what, this was wrong. There was wrongdoing on both sides. This isn't the way America's supposed to operate. And, he said he's going to take time. He's going to make an articulate statement, and he's not going to rush to judgment like other people have.
Well, like the news has. I mean,
the news or friggin' anybody else, right?
Been insane. And I mean, and the funny thing is, well, if we take a look at, this here accident that occurred, accident, incident, whatever you want to call it, attack, however, the deceased party was squished between two cars, and she wasn't actually hit by the driver. The driver ended up smacking into another vehicle, which pushed up against another, and she was between those two, and she died. That means she was blocking traffic.
She may not have necessarily been blocking traffic. She may have been attempting to cross the street. It's hard to say. It's hard to say,
but
because you don't know intent, right? You don't know intent.
Don't know intent, and you put yourself into some, potentially dangerous situation like that. You have to accept the consequences, I think.
Well, I believe it was you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
That's about it. And I don't know. I find that the media outrage about, quote unquote Nazis and white supremacists and by far the newest and most sensational slur that they can throw against people is nationalist. And as if, it's already a foregone conclusion that globalism is the only path or something like that. And many members of the media were assaulted during this thing.
Certainly. They were punched across the face and everything.
And I mean, a reporter was filmed being beaten.
Yeah, this is the female reporter who was punched by a Black Lives Matter activist.
Something like that, yeah. And we're going to focus on this guy who, I'll tell you what, this guy's probably unhinged from what I'm reading about it. Apparently, he couldn't finish basic training because he had a screw loose or something like that. He lives with his disabled mother. There's been several interactions with him and the police over the last and the police, and his mother over the past couple years. I don't know.
I think you say he's probably not right in the head to begin with.
Right, and you had one guy who's not right in the head, and you add it to a whole group of people who are not right in the head, and you give him the weapon of the week, the Dodge Challenger. Yeah, this is what you get, and I dare say that I find the media to be far more culpable in this than anybody else would like to admit.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting enough to me that Trump has the gumption to go on the news and say, you know what, there were bad people on both sides. They were, people did a lot of bad things, but there were a lot of good people too, saying what they wanted to say. But the point for me was that he was like, and that's more than you fake news folks are saying.
And I'll tell you what, he gains respect from me every time he calls out the fake news. I mean, honestly, Trump's not perfect by any means.
No, and I don't think people are looking for perfection. I think people are actually looking for somebody who's not afraid to sit there and say, you know what, this narrative that is being pushed is one-sided, and not only is it one-sided, it's a narrative that there's an agenda behind it.
Absolutely. I mean, we look at the fact that all the major media companies are owned by like 6 different conglomerates. I mean, and that's all the major media outlets. I'm not just talking about the big 3 broadcast networks. I'm talking about every frickin' newspaper, every sort of AM, FM radio broadcast. All that stuff is controlled by about 6 companies, and they don't have the same. They don't have the same vision of the future you do, or that you desire. Your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means something completely different to those people. And
certainly, yeah.
They'll pretty much do anything that they can to push their view, which is why we see, the outrage is. I mean, seriously, Nick, we shouldn't have built a wall. Trump should have built a Maginot Line, because the Nazis have invaded. Apparently, I mean. Well, which forest did we leave no tank traps at? Did they rush through in the middle of that? Which state is our Belgium?
Yeah, well, it's good. You could argue from the southern border, it's got to be Arizona.
El Belgium, El Belgique.
Yeah. El Belgique. Shout out for my homies in Bruges.
Yeah, El Belgica, La Belgica, whatever.
Those are just the fuckers who play us in soccer.
Yeah, they make really good chocolate, and I prefer the high power that is Belgium.
Yeah, they make good guns, good beer, good chocolate, and good French fries.
And they got badass highways that you can drive a tank on.
Yeah, you see now I beg to differ with you, and I will tell you, because as somebody who's driven on la autoroute in Belgium, it is just like the Germans drove through last week, and they drove through on King Panzer tanks.
Well, I'm sure they had other things to spend their money on, considering their large influx of immigrants, which is the same kind of plan that they want to throw on us right here, right?
Yeah,
and we're seeing the outrage against that kind of plan, and people who willingly lap up, lies from the mainstream media. I see this being played out, and quite frankly, I think the next great big rally, riot, whatever the hell's going to happen, I think is going to have some small arms fire in it, and I think it's going to come from the left side, and I think it's going to be from low quality handguns. that are
Well,
quite
so
frankly
so
probably going to be stolen.
when you take a look at that, didn't we already have some left-wing violence by way of shooting a seated member of, was it the House of Representatives, or
Right,
yeah, or no,
Scalise
I'm
was
sorry, it was a senator, right?
right. He was shot. The shooter had an SKS with 30 round magazine on it, and it wasn't one of the Model D SKSs, which takes the AK-47 magazine, and this is the conversion that's quite popular, where people have that great big old duckbill mag, and usually it involves changing a stock and all that, which I don't do it, and just keep the SKS as it is and learn to use stripper clips. Jesus, it's not that hard. Stripper clips, that's a fairly decent topic. How do you feel about stripper clips?
Well, when you go to make your purchases of most 5.56 ammo, if you get it in boxes, they're loaded on the 10-round stripper clips. And the only thing that I have against stripper clips is that you need the adapter in order to go ahead and charge the magazine with them.
Well, and that would be for the 5.56 magazines.
Right. So, there's a lot of World War II and previous ammunition that was manufactured to be, dispensed on stripper clips. Like, for example, the Mauser 98. You can go ahead and load your 5 rounds into the Mauser, and then you're good to go. And as a matter of fact, the internal magazine was already configured so that the stripper clip attached directly to the internal magazine. You didn't need an adapter.
Right. The adapter is built into the receiver.
There you go.
That's basically how it is with the SKS. And when we're talking about the adapter, that usually comes with if you buy a case or an entire ammo can of military surplus ammunition or military contract ammunition. It'll come in boxes of 30, whereas most commercial production comes in boxes of 20 and is in little styrofoam boxes. But this military stuff comes in boxes of 30, and it's 10 rounds to a stripper clip. And usually in the box, you'll have 1 or 2 little charging adapters. And you start getting good at that, you can load a 30-round magazine in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, most oftentimes you're able to, you can take just even in a 5.56 magazine, you can go ahead and take it, load the adapter to the magazine, and then go ahead and just ram it against like an ammo can or something, just even a table, and you can charge 10 rounds just like that.
Right. The very first time I used a stripper clip to load an AR-15 magazine, or the NATO Stanag magazine, I became a convert, and I almost loathe buying ammo in 20-round boxes now because of that. Just because it's so much simpler to charge. And I'll tell you what, those stripper clips in the adapter, they also do work with the PMag. You got to have like a little bit more.
You got to be, yeah. I was going to say you got to be a little bit more careful with that, because you don't want to crack the polymer, because I mean those are small joints.
Right, and it's fairly tough, but I found rather than like ramming it against an ammo can with a PMag, you just sit it up there. You actually just hand shove it in, and it doesn't necessarily tear your hand up. It takes a little bit longer with a PMag than with an aluminum magazine. I really enjoy buying the ammo on stripper clips since I figured that out. I don't know, when you had your Army basic training, is that how they taught you how to load them?
Well, so the interesting thing is that when you're going through basic training, a basic trainee is not doing anything in terms of loading ammunition into the magazine prior to going on the range. Anytime you get ready to go onto the range detail, which is there before, during, and after the individual firing orders go through, does everything in terms of getting the ammunition ready. And the reason they do that is to cut down on the instances of soldiers trying to, pocket and pilfer ammunition. So basically every piece of brass is accounted for, every round is accounted for, and the individual firer only gets a loaded magazine. He doesn't get a chance to load anything unless, he happens to eject around and tries to reload it into the magazine to get back up and get firing.
Okay, so let me ask you then. During your basic training, did you load any magazine?
No, I did not.
When in your Army career did you load your first magazine?
Oh, probably would have been when I got to my first duty station and I needed to get my my magazines ready to go out to the firing order. So at that time, it was like, hey, go up and draw up, 40 rounds so that you can go ahead and start doing your 18 for weapon zeroing. And actually, no, it was 18. So it was 60 rounds because it was 18 for weapon zeroing and then 40 rounds for your qualification. And you had 2 left over.
One for you and one for your drill instructor.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's one of the things you get a chance to see is that when you have your 5.56 and you're actually out there, doing the actual, we call it PMI, primary method of instruction for marksmanship. You get a chance to do like the dry firing exercises. So you're learning how to develop a steady hold, good sight picture, and then you're learning how to employ proper trigger squeeze. You do all that prior to even going through and hitting a firing range. So your fundamentals need to be down first before you can even go up and have a chance of being successful. But when you actually do get out there, I mean, it's nobody wants to be out on a range all day because the Army doesn't do ranges in a fun way. The Army does ranges in the most difficult way possible, and it's usually at the hottest time of the day.
Right, you guys don't have like a cooler full of drinks and.
Maybe the guys, maybe the guys who are doing the range safety stuff do, but the guys who are out there just to do the shooting, no, you go out there and you bring your Camelback or you bring your canteens and that's it.
Huh. All right.
It's not a fun process.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's a day at the dump with your buddies. Let me ask you this then. So when you loaded your first magazine, were you aware of because I'm going to assume you got 2 30-round boxes of ammunition like you were saying to draw 60 rounds of ammo. So I'm going to assume you got 2 30-round boxes already preloaded on stripper clips. Were you aware of at that time how to use the stripper clip and the adapter, or did somebody say, "Hey,
it takes you about 2 seconds to learn how to use it"?
Right. It takes you 2 seconds, but were you aware that there was an adapter? Were you aware this is how it worked? Another question is
not off the bat.
Did you have a load of adapters sitting around, like say maybe like an ammo can full of adapters, and you just reach?
Like I said, at the range control station, which is right there behind the firing lines, they have the detail there. That's their job. So very rarely do you ever do it. But, for whatever reason, I got called up to load my own stuff. And, I just watched the guy who was loading them right next to me. I was like, oh, okay, it's not that hard.
Oh, okay. So you had the more visual and then and tactile versus didactic learning route. That's cool.
Right. So
that's cool. Yeah. And now, how do you feel about when you buy a 20-round magazine or a 20-round box of ammo and it's stuffed into styrofoam? You got to jam them fuckers in.
It's a pain in the butt.
Dude, it's a pain in the thumb, is what it is.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that you get these 150-round boxes from Walmart. Little paper green boxes or the 90-round black boxes.
Right.
Those are all on stripper clips. So, but they don't come with an adapter.
Right. The only thing that I've seen comes with the adapter is that 420-round can.
Right.
That's
$150 or something like that, right?
See, last time I got one, might have been about $179 is what I paid. But I got it at a big box store, and it wasn't necessarily on sale. I just had the cash at the time, and I don't know, shit was going down, whatever, in my own mind. And yeah, better, it doesn't hurt to get another box of ammo because I would have spent that money on, I don't know, crippled children or something like that.
I think of the children.
So
yeah, and that's the thing I was gonna bring up earlier. There's a story out in the news today. Dick's Sporting Goods, their stock just dropped out at the bottom based on poor gun sales. What do you think of that?
I'm surprised it didn't happen a lot sooner. I mean, but I mean, at the same rate, I'm surprised Radio Shack didn't go out of business like 10 years ago. But yeah, I mean, look, they were selling guns at 30% more than any other online retailer or any other big box store. And then they would actually raise the price and then put it on a 15% sale, to where it was only like maybe $30 cheaper than what it was on something that was like $600 that should have been actually $450.
Right.
They had a bad business practice. And, like we kind of discussed last week, we see that with a bunch of companies had bad business practices and did not position themselves correctly for the future during the panic. I think they thought that, the life of $30 magazines and, $30 for a box of 20 on 5.56 and, $30 for a box of cheap ass 115 grain full metal jacket 9mm. I think they thought those days were going to last, AR-15 straight up on it.
Colt making the $2,100 AR.
Right. Well, not only Colt making a $2,100 AR, but, a polymer lowered AR going for, in the neighborhood of $900. And I mean, currently right now, anywhere you look, you can get what used to be considered a high end $1,200-$1,300 AR for about $500. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, Ocho, gave me a link to a pawn and gun shop in his area, and they had a Wyndham rifle. It was a flat top, and it came with flip up iron sights. Flip up backup sights. I'm gonna say they were probably a Magpul on it, but it was a Wyndham rifle, and a Wyndham is just as good as a Colt. Wyndham is a company that split off from Colt in the fact that its engineers were dissatisfied with some of the way some of the things were done at Colt, and they took off and made their own company. They make a very, very high quality rifle. And that thing was going for $500. I mean, 3 years ago, and that was an $1,800 rifle.
My goodness.
And you'd have to buy your own backup iron sights. And I mean, right now, how much is a pair of backup sights for my Magpul? Probably anywhere.
Ooh, you're looking for probably $39 for the rear sight, and you're looking at $59 for the front sight.
Okay, so nearly $100.
Yeah, usually like $90 is what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a significant deal. I think
yeah.
I mean, we're seeing the price of things going down. What's not going down to the price of the used items. I was at a gun show this weekend, and there was a lot of people, but there wasn't a whole lot of transacting going on. And once again, it was a pile and acres of black plastic and almost plywood looking AK-47s. And I don't know, I want to say that the market's stagnating, but I'd almost like to compare it to like the boom in the oil industry. And I know it almost happens the same way. You get these great big rush cycles, and everybody gets fat and happy, and then the bust shows up and people are overextended and they get kind of sucked down. And I think we're kind of in that position. And honestly, I kind of got a feeling that we're not too far away from another major gun control effort, because that's usually what happens after there's like some sort of violence in the United States. And
well, I don't think that's I don't think that that's going to be a big priority for any legislative body. I mean, maybe on a local level, but I'll tell you, in most state legislatures and definitely in the House and definitely in the Senate, that's not going to come up. And the only way it'll come up is if you have the same thing that happened during the healthcare push, which was to have a couple of rhinos, like Susan Collins of Maine or Lisa Murkowski, who got defeated and, only got back into Congress on a write-in ballot, or John McCain, who's been suffering from brain tumors.
Or Lindsey Graham, who somebody probably has pictures of him with a 12-year-old boy naked, who will do whatever they tell him to do.
Yeah, well, and who's the greater threat to democracy, right?
North Korea. That's it.
I'll tell you what, you haven't heard anything about ISIS in the last couple of weeks.
That's right. You haven't heard anything about ISIS. You haven't heard anything about Syria. Trump turned that off. How many? Yep. All right, so you're not necessarily a Ute anymore. How many presidents in your life?
I am not.
You've got more than a few decades under your belt. In your entire life, how many presidents have turned off a war? And mission accomplished does not count.
No, I can say that Obama shut the war off largely in Iraq. I can say that. He definitely did do that, and he did remove troops foolhardily, but he did do it.
Did he continue anywhere? Because,
so he took the bulk of our combat power out of Iraq, but then he promptly started to send it in piecemeal back in.
He didn't necessarily turn off the war then. He just kind of showed.
For the most part, he did, and he let the people of Iraq kind of watch their gains that they had underneath our tutelage and our effort disappear because of a power vacuum that existed. Because there was nothing in the federal government of the new Iraq that was going to be able to consolidate the gains that we helped them achieve, and then get it to where they could ward off any of the internal threats to stability that they had.
I'm interested. I find it interesting that you take that view, because I would dare say that the war in Iraq is still ongoing as long as we have troops there.
Well, and that's the thing. Do we have a ton of troops there? Not so much.
But how many?
Did we have the bulk of our combat effort and power gone? Yeah. I mean,
how many troops do you think we have in Iraq right now? If that's not necessarily,
I couldn't even begin to estimate. You got to figure there's a brigade at a time, and then you have the advise and assist brigades that are over there. So
how many people?
An advise and assist brigade is a combat power brigade any way you look at it.
All right, so how many people would you guess in them two things, a brigade and then the assist brigade? How many people?
Probably anywhere between 4,000 and 8,000, so 1 to 2 brigades, I'm guessing right now. But like I said, you could easily find that information.
All right, so that's 10,000 people. That's about half the number of people in my county. That's not necessarily game over.
Well, no, it's not necessarily game over. It's certainly a more than significant, drawing down of forces, and to the point where the forces that are remaining are not combat oriented. They are not the ones that are going to go out there and run patrols and do things like that. And I really don't. I think you have to really delineate, and it's sort of similar to the justification that the Obama administration was using, like, well, no, these aren't combat troops. Well, yeah, dickwad, yeah, they are combat troops. If they're over there and people are shooting at them, they're in combat. But
right. That's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Because
yeah, but as far
they
as
aren't combat troops, they're advisors.
Yeah.
But what are they advising them on? And this is how you pull the trigger and put the enemy in your sight. Well, fuck, that's war, man. You're shooting people.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, like I said, even though the ones that are still there, they don't necessarily have the combat power to conduct sustained operations or lead operations for that matter.
I don't know, man. You got 10,000 dudes, you can do a hell of a lot of stuff. 10,000 dudes, each one of them got a gun in about 3 months of training and the ability to do whatever the guy with the most stripes tells them to do. Yeah, you got yourself a formidable force.
Yeah, if they have the political willpower to let them do what they need to do.
Shit, if they just go nuts on their own.
Well, when they go
That's
nuts on their own,
God.
that's bad. We don't want soldiers going nuts on their own. The guy that
No,
did that
thank
in
God.
Afghanistan, he's paying for it with a life sentence. So no, we don't want that.
Yeah, that would be bad because I'll tell you what, we're seeing nuts on our own. Here. I mean, getting back to this Charlottesville thing and the deployment of well, improvised weaponry, and then like the media lies about actual firearms that are going on at that thing, and then the focus on the Dodge Challenger, while all the same while ignoring the weekend in Chicago. Well, I mean, just one city in many that ends up having the same kind of like gang violence, which is related to many issues, but always seems to center on one demographic and whatever. Yeah, I kind of think that if you put all that together, and we're in the middle of the opening days of the second revolution or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I don't necessarily share that opinion. I think that, like I said, this has come and this has gone before. Nerves are raw right now. People have strong opinions on either side, but there's some truth to what Donald Trump was saying, and that was, you know what? Where does this end? Do we go back to the founding fathers, and do we go back and say, that was George Washington was a slave owner, so we're going to pull down his statues and monuments? Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. Do we pull down Monticello? Do we pull down the University of Virginia? At some point, the push is to rewrite history, and that's what every socialist movement does. They want to rewrite history. It's just like the Russians in World War II.
Well, not only do they want to rewrite history, they want to destroy the language at the same time.
Well, they want to control the language. I don't think they want to destroy the language. They want to control the
language. I think they need to destroy the language, because I think you and I can both agree that no matter what happens in life, words have meanings, and definitions are really the basis of our society as we know it now. There's legal definitions for everything.
People have come before and said borders, language, and culture. And
I hate that dude, but I will have to agree that's what a society is about.
Yeah, and not only that, but when you have people that want to have a commonality between them, whether it's by language, whether it's by culture, or just a homogenous border, that throughout time, that's the three things that it's taken in order to form some kind of population.
Well, and we see that right now, that there's every effort to kind of like, I would not say usurp, but really just decimate it. Like every sort of corrosive force is being applied all at once, and the focus is been the focus of the mainstream media, I should say, and not even just the mainstream media, but a lot of the smaller media that's controlled has been on the use of buzzwords and highly inflammatory things. And I swear to God, this whole thing about Nazis is I don't know. I think it's a joke.
Well, we do have people like, and like I said, having been to Germany, having been a member of the United States Army that's actually fought Nazis. Yeah, these guys pretend to have these, these personal biases.
And Nazi is just a boogeyman term. It's almost meaningless anymore.
Yeah, this is the same thing as this is the same thing as calling somebody an anti-Semite.
Exactly, and I mean, honestly, if people really want to like talk about like killing and all that, well, number one, you got to look at the Chinese. I think they got like probably the high score right now. But you really want to get into it? I mean, the Spanish combined with the church killed everybody. We killed Indians. We killed Africans. We killed Muslims. We killed Jews. We killed Europeans. We killed ourselves. We killed everybody. And we killed everybody so good that the consumption of pork is almost a national sport And why pork? Because that signifies that you are not halal nor kosher, you cut shaft bastard.
They remove kebab very well.
But they do. And they remove kebab all over the world. Hell, they even threw in some slaughter of some Asians, too. You know? I mean, not necessarily quite as many, but, you know, they were kind of advanced and pretty good at it by that time. And, I mean, you know, it just this Nazi boogeyman shit, you know, and oh my God, there's a Nazi flag. Yeah, well, big fucking deal. Everybody else is marching around with some kind of Soviet flag, you know.
When you have the statue that just got yanked down in Durham, North Carolina, what was the picture of the organization, the newworker.org? Tell me that's not a socialist organization. I mean, I didn't necessarily live through the Red Scare of the 1950s, but I'll tell you that anything that I see Workers' Party or worker whatever, yeah, that's socialism. Because, oh, by the way, guess what? The Nazis were socialists.
Absolutely.
National Socialist German Workers' Party.
Which is completely different than like a global socialism. So I got no problem with National Socialism. As a matter of fact, I can kind of espouse it at points where, you know, we are a great country. We're a very strong country. If we didn't have a bunch of Jew bastards running this thing and shipping every fucking job out to China or fucking Honduras or something, we'd make every goddamn product in this world. You know, we have a lot of fucking force. We got 7,000 nuclear missiles. You know, we are a strong nation, and there's no reason that, honestly, we shouldn't have any kind of health care for everybody that's paid for at a government level with the taxes we already pay. But at the same time that we should have that, we shouldn't just focus on the health care like, oh, well, now you need a double bypass, sorry. But we should be educating people and creating some sort of national program that creates some sort of like health education and you know, things that are good for the body. And you know, I don't want to come across as a Hitler apologist or anything, because honestly, I think the dude fucked up plenty. He had the world at his hands and he methed it away. I won't hold my tongue on that. But at the same time, you can't deny that he had a lot of things going. I mean, well, straight up honest, he took Germany out of a massive depression and massive, I mean, like, you know, trillion-fold depression. I mean, you've seen the pictures of like the kids in Weimar, Germany with a, you know, wagon full of Reichsmarks or whatever the hell they were, Deutschmarks at the time. And, you know, they were going to use those as blocks. They weren't going to go spend that money, you know. He turned that entire situation around in like 3 years to where like Germany was an economic powerhouse. You know, he provided, homelessness went to almost nothing. I mean, and you've been to Germany. How many of those buildings and houses and things were probably built, you know, during the rise of, you know, the Nazi Party?
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
as public works building.
Quite a few.
And honestly, they got the shit bombed out of them, and they're still there.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. You know, the frames of the houses were actually made of something strong back then. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's how they were able to break this goddamn money system that we were. They ended up making their economy based on the value of what they produced, and German goods. Hey, look, isn't that the joke? Like, you know, the BMW is overly complicated because it's, you know, it's such a high precision machine. All the German stuff is like that. That's not like a stereotype that doesn't come from anywhere, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I dropped some stuff in chat regarding the American Taliban, John Walker Lind. A lot of people don't know that he's getting ready to come up for parole. It's been that long.
It has been. It's been how long has it been? And maybe
it's 16 years since 2001, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And well, he was captured in what early 2002, wasn't he?
It was whenever they went into Mazar-e Sharif. I want to say that was 2001, or I think it was like October October 30th, 2001, or something like that.
That's right. That's right after the war started, man. That's forever ago.
Yeah, and I'm still in this, and I'm still in the service.
No shit. What's up with that? You should have been fired by now.
Well, I tried. They didn't seem to want to get rid of me.
That's what you get for having skizzles.
Yeah, mad skizzles.
Yeah, so John Walker Lind, American Taliban, young disaffected American. As I recall, his parents were like B'nai B'rith members or something like that, and he changed religion several times, settled on jihadi as his religion of choice, and went and was abused in Afghanistan, and I think he was caught with like an AKSU and a couple of hand grenades. Is that correct?
So he was convicted of actually using an explosive device in the commission of a crime, terrorist act. So that was one of the things that his lawyer, defense lawyer, was saying. He wasn't doing anything, and I think that they popped him for material support to a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
So he was originally sentenced to 20 years in prison. So you think back in 2001, he probably got him convicted 2 years later, trials and whatnot. So he's scheduled to be released in May 2019. I mean, that's not a long time from now.
Yeah, I kind of find that one interesting because you seem to see more prisoners not necessarily doing like a greater percentage of their time like he seems to have done quite a bit.
Yeah, and not only that, he's actually at the point where he's secured some Irish citizenship. He hopes to be repatriated to Ireland after his stint in the federal pen in Terry.
How is he repatriated to Ireland? He's
because just like the other Irish, there's the law of the right to return.
That Ireland.
No, the real Ireland, but they both have
the real
that.
Ireland.
The real Ireland.
Oh yeah,
but they both have that.
American.
Yeah, he's American, but he was able to convince somebody based on a familial relationship, and that's one of those things.
Oh, fuck's sake! How do B'nai B'rith members get fucking Irish citizenship? Like what are they from? The county Corkstein or something?
Corkenberg. Yeah. So think about it. He watched himself Malcolm X and decided he wanted to convert to Islam in '98. At 17 years old, he went to
Malcolm X, and I wanted the white women.
Yeah, well, there you go. So,
I actually, straight up, honestly, it's funny you brought up Malcolm X. I've been noticing, like, recently there's been a dearth of shit to watch on YouTube. And by shit, I truly mean shit, because it's all crap. And do yourself a favor, do not click on anything that's even remotely, like, brainless stuff related, because you will get endless recommendations for, top 15 fidget spinner designs in 2017 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And, Batman versus Darth Vader, who would win? Shit like that, right? But,
yeah.
I don't know, man. It's all become garbage. It's really become garbage. YouTube is censoring and shutting people down. I mean, hell, we've had our words censored, our titles censored by YouTube. I'm sure
it's not going to reach the widest advertising audience.
We're not necessarily promoted or anything, and they don't BMW commercials.
It's not. What did they say was not advertiser friendly?
They're not advertiser friendly.
So what do you think of these folks that are out there that are identifying people who participated in the various events? They have no problem identifying people from the faction that they don't like, and pressuring their businesses, their places of employment to fire these people.
Look at this like legit, right? So it's happened on both sides. But if you want to like split this down the middle and call one side left and one side right, I guess you almost have to do it like that. But when it's happened like this same, the term is doxing.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been necessarily to get somebody fired. It was to connect them with a crime. And you see that the left is now doxing after this the Charlottesville thing. And they're not necessarily doxing to have people convicted of any sort of crime, because honestly, there wasn't any kind of like criminal activity on the right.
Well, no. They are doing it, and there's a hashtag out there called "Goodnight Alt-Right."
Right.
And
well, different, but they want people to lose their job.
Exactly.
And then somebody, you broke a law, you whacked somebody in the head with a fucking bike lock while you're wearing a mask, you big fucking pussy.
Right.
You're trying to like hurt somebody, and I'll tell you what. Earlier today, I heard an interview where somebody was actually very, very proud of the fact that they were hurt, and they were putting people's businesses out. And fine if you disagree with the guy's ideology, but now you just took food out of that dude's kid's mouth. And you know what? There's consequences for shit like that in some people's society. And honestly, you take food out of my mouth, you take food out of my kid's mouth, you stop me from doing whatever, and you go right to the top of the shit list. And I'll tell you what, you fuck with me hard enough, and you won't be fucking with anybody anymore.
The interesting thing is that
I think that applies to everybody.
Yeah, but regardless of your political belief, we still have a right in this country to say what we want to say. I mean, we marginally, I guess, but we still do. But at what point, if you just participate in a rally, whether you're on one side or the other, does your employer have the right to terminate you because of your appearance? Well, who's to say that these people who were appearing at the rally on the behalf of Black Lives Matter or any of the other Socialist Workers' Party organizations that were there that were holding the unauthorized and unlawful assembly, why aren't they getting fired?
Well, I guess because there's no there's no evil connotation with people who hold up Soviet flags or Angolan flags or anything like that, or burn the American flag or piss on the American flag or fucking loot a fucking Foot Locker or set goddamn garbage cans on fire. That's totally acceptable. Because quite honestly, there hasn't really been any kind of movie made about any of the Soviet or communist fucking horrors. I mean, straight up, honestly, anything that has been made has really been kind of like, starring, I don't know, what's his name, Adrian Brody or something like that as the hero. And they gloss over it, and because, I mean, straight up, honestly, communism is Judaism. That's just all there is to it,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you see the iconic image of the was it the Dodge Challenger, running into
beep, beep.
Running into the crowd, you can clearly pick out the Black Lives Matter posters that are not somebody made it in their backyard. These are the ones.
No, these are professionals. These are professional men. There's funding behind that. And when you go to see any of these protests and you see hundreds of people carrying the exact same or very similar posters and placards and things like that. Yeah, there's money behind that. And I'll tell you what, they're going to play us just like they played every other goddamn nation that they want to subvert. Yeah. And it's happening right now. So, all right, let's go with cheap gun of the night.
Well, hey, before we do that, did you see the story I dropped in chat earlier about CCI opening a new 22 rimfire production facility in Idaho?
No, that's very nice. CCI is and I hope they keep their standards up to what it is now.
It'll be a 37,000 square feet facility, and Vista Outdoors, which owns CCI and Federal, are going to be building it. So it's in Lewiston, Idaho. And this one that has been running, that's pretty much nonstop to meet the demand. produces about 4 million 22 rimfire rounds a day, which, if it did that during the scare, for people in this country to snap up 4 million rounds of 22 rimfire a day, that I couldn't find it. That's a lot.
I did the math on that. All right, so we're looking at approximately 150 million guns in the United States. All right, and you're looking at probably 50 million.
So that's nearly one gun for every 2 people in the United States, whether you're here legally or illegally.
Right. So let's just take, like, on a generous number. 1/3 of those guns are 22s. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thereabouts.
All right. So that means there's 50 million. All right. There's 50 million 22s running around in the United States. Everybody wants a brick of 500. 500 times 50 million. What does that come out to be?
Ooh, that's a lot of zeros and a lot of fives.
Big whole number, and
yeah, what?
Then you divide that
quarter billion or something like that.
Yeah, you divide that big old number by 4 million, and shit, you can see why there was a shortage, And then you throw in, everybody like camping out at Walmart or at Academy, like 5 o'clock in the morning, waiting for their doors to open, so they go grab 2 boxes of CZI Stinger, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you won't be doing it at Dick's Sporting Goods, that's for sure. Not in trying to get a good price.
Absolutely not. All right, so my pick for cheap, dependable weapon of the week: Maverick 88 Security Edition by Mossberg. 12-gauge pump shotgun, 7+1 capacity, 20-inch barrel, full stock. Mossberg dependability. You can't beat it for $200.
Actually, and not only that, Academy in your area has them for $189 online. Actually, no, in store. I'm sorry, not sold online. Sold only in stores for $189. And,
so
that's basically a 500.
It's almost a 500. There's slight differences in them. Basically, those differences into making it a value price shotgun. It's an American product. I don't think you can beat it. It's not necessarily a combat shotgun, but it is rough and tough. And there's people out there that got 5,000 rounds of them things without cleaning them.
Yeah, well, yeah. As most shotgunners I know don't tend to actually take care of their stuff very well. But hey, we're getting ready to run out of time. We need some firearm safety.
All right. First rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect and ensure that the firearm is not loaded. Rule number 2: keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Do not cover anything you don't wish to destroy. Rule number 3: know what the target is. Know what is beyond your target at all times. Rule number 4, the most important rule, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the firearm, especially if you have live ammo, which that's kind of like a joke because that seems to be a buzzword that's going around, that, oh my God, the police practice with live ammo. Well, what the fuck are they supposed to practice with? Dead ammo?
Hey, train as you fight, right?
Right. What you're supposed to do? Why don't we just give them a whole bunch of black cats to throw around if it's all about making?
They want that cinema ammo where they're shooting at a movie screen.
I'd like that ammo that never runs out if we're going to get it.
and I want to get a hold of Sylvester Stallone's supplier.
I totally love the gun of Rambo that like reloads by all you got to do is like lift your arm and a brand new fucking built appears on that sumbitch.
Yeah, sure enough. All right. Well, you know what? It's good to be back. We've got 2 weeks in a row that we haven't had a scheduling conflict come up, so let's keep it up. Let's keep it going.
Our employees of the week.
There you go. It's good to have our listeners in chat. We got a good following out there. We appreciate you guys, and definitely Jules. So, Michael, take us out of here.
Nick, I can't give enough thanks to Jules. Everybody got to
Patriots